मीडिया वेव्स टीवी तो खबरां दा लेखा जोखा प्रोग्राम दे विच आप सब दा स्वागत है।
Khabran Da Lekha Jokha September 23rd, 2024 has been sponsored by Hanif Litigation. Any criminal or regulatory law matters, contact lawyer Shahid Hanif at Hanif Litigation 604-626-3144. Police withhold identity of victim killed in Langley double shooting. People living near where a double shooting that left one man dead and another wounded in Langley over the weekend are speaking out about their experience. We heard like 10 to 12 shots go off and then a series of 5, one neighbor shared. After I realized the closeness of the situation and how serious it was, the police were called. When the RCMP arrived at a property near 196th Street and 84th Avenue around 6:30 p.m. Saturday, they found two men with gunshot wounds. One could not be saved and the other was rushed to hospital to be treated for non-life-threatening injuries. I've lived here a good long while and I ever really expected it to be such a serious issue, maybe with gangs, the neighbor said, who says he did not know who had been shot. The RCMP have now confirmed that they have identified the man who was killed and he is known to police. Mounties say his name is being withheld for the time being as the family is notified. A report in the Vancouver Sun indicates the man who was injured is a long-time Lower Mainland gangster. Preliminary indications are that his shooting is linked to the ongoing BC gang conflict. The RCMP said in a statement Sunday afternoon, although no suspects have been identified, this is believed to be a targeted shooting and isolated event. Investigators are looking for more witness or dashcam footage from the area Saturday evening.
कल लैंगली विखे हुई शूटिंग दे विच एक दा कतल होया ते दूसरा सख्त जख्मी है और 6:30 बजे के करीब घटना वापरी सी जदों कि पुलिस नूं इतला मिली दो व्यक्तियों नूं गनशॉट वुंड्स तो जख्मी होण दी हालात दे विच पाया गया। एक दी मौत हो गई, दूसरे नूं हस्पताल दे विच सख्त जख्मां दे कारण इलाज किया जा रहा है। और पुलिस का यह कहना कि धार के चलाइया गई गोलियां ने और ये चल रहा लोअर मेनलैंड के जो गैंग कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है उस दे बल पूरी तरह इशारा किया जा रहा है तो नाल दी नाल इस वक्त जो अहिट है इस मामले की तफ्तीश कर रही है। और पुलिस का यह भी कहना कि किसी भी प्रकार की तुहाडे पास जानकारी हो जां फिर डैश कैम फुटेज हो तो जरूर पुलिस के नाल संपर्क पैदा किया जाए।
Langley Turf Company targeted by vandals, sports reward. A turf company based in Langley says it's out tens of thousands of dollars after it says vandals destroyed some of its grass by breaking through the gate and doing donuts on the field. It's over $50,000 worth of damage, Western Turf Farms General Manager Rob Rent said. The property is at 80th Avenue and 240th Street. Rent, who confirms the RCMP is investigating, believes the damage happened sometimes late Saturday night into Sunday morning. He says they're combing over nearby surveillance footage to see if they can pinpoint the vehicle involved. We noticed the block that's usually connected to the cable gate to keep people out of the gate was tipped over. Ren says the block is about 2,000 pounds. He's not sure of the motive. It takes a little bit of effort to do something like that when you work as hard as we do at the farm. It makes you sick to see, he said. Rin says the damage is done. When they harvest the land in April, the majority will likely be thrown away. The company is now offering a $2,500 reward for information that leads to identification and conviction.
टर्फ बनाने वाले फार्म के खेतर दे विच जाके उसके उत्ते गड्डी चला के डोनट बना के टर्फ नूं डिस्ट्रॉय करन दीयां जिहड़ियां सूचनावां सामने आईयां ने और मालकां ने भी दस्सिया कि तकरीबन $50,000 के करीब का यह नुकसान किया और मतलब पिछे की है मोटिव की है ये तो नहीं पता पर काफ़ी ज़्यादा भारे जिहड़े पत्थर ने उन्होंने हटा के उत्थों की सवारी जिहड़ी है बाड़ी गई है और हुण इस गल की तफ्तीश चल रही है कि किस प्रकार आस पास के कैमरिਆਂ तो ताकि पता किया जा सके कि ये जिहड़ी गड्डी है वो किहड़ी सी और नाल दी नाल उन्होंने ये भी गल कही है कि हुण ये आउण वाले समय की साडी अप्रैल की जिहड़ी टर्फ दी फसल है वो बिल्कुल ही तबाह हो गई है और जिहड़ी कि बाहर ही सानू सुट्टनी पएगी।
Restaurants Canada predicting severe consequences following changes to foreign workers policy. The federal government's largest Latest changes to the Temporary Foreign Workers TFW program take effect on Thursday. While the government insists the alterations are designed to reduce Canadian employers' reliance on the program to fill vacancies, Restaurants Canada is predicting severe consequences. The agency says there are currently 73,000 openings in the industry, with positions in rural, remote and tourist regions the hardest to fill. The updated program will restrict workers to 1-year contracts down from the current 2 and will limit workplaces to fill out 10% of total positions with foreign workers, that is down from a 20% cap. Mark Von Scholwitz is the vice president of the Western branch of Restaurants Canada. He points out that employers spend a lot of time doing paperwork and paying fees to hire international employees. They then put in more time training the employees, which he believes going forward is hardly going to be worth it just for 12 months of work. And then by the time the workers are actually in the business and contributing to the business, they've got a year, which is down from the previous 2 years contract, Scholwitz said. That doesn't make a lot of sense. He doesn't think tweaking the TFW system is the solution. While our real goal is to bring immigrants in, have them become permanent residents rather than this band-aid solution, which is a temporary foreign worker where you get them for 1 year instead of 2 years and you have to send them back and get a new batch again, he says. We have about 1 million workers here as refugees or family members of immigrants that aren't working right now, so we need a program to match those individuals so we can hire them. It's not the first time the program has been altered. Over the years, it has been the subject of controversy over the number of foreigners it brings in and whether local employers make a concerted effort to look for Canadian candidates before going abroad. Employers are now have to provide a labor market impact assessment, LMIA, to confirm a foreign worker is indeed needed. Advocates for the workers themselves have long argued that the contract should not be tied to a simple employer, as that makes the employee vulnerable to abuses and prevents the worker from seeking work elsewhere. People in the program are generally expected to leave Canada after the term is over, but in some cases they can apply through other immigration streams to become permanent residents. Von Scholwitz says the best success stories are when the workers are allowed to stay. He says while only about 3% of all workers employed in the restaurant sector in Canada belong to a temporary foreign worker program, the changes will severely impact establishments in smaller towns where they'll have no choice but to reduce hours or close altogether.
ਟੈਂਪਰੇਰੀ ਫੋਰਨ ਵਰਕਰ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਤਬਦੀਲੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਮੱਦੇਨਜ਼ਰ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਭਰ ਦੇ ਰੈਸਟੋਰੈਂਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੀ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਤਬਦੀਲੀਆਂ ਆਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਰੈਸਟੋਰੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ EMPLOYEES ਦੀ ਕਮੀ ਵਧੇਰੀ ਮਾਤਰਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਏਗੀ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਰਕਰਸ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਲੱਭਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਹਾਲ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਦੁਸ਼ਵਾਰੀ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੋਇਆ ਪਿਆ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਮਾਂਬੰਦੀ ਆ 2 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਘਟਾ ਕੇ 1 ਸਾਲ ਆ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਵਰਤਾਂਤ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਟੈਂਪਰੇਰੀ ਫੋਰਨ ਵਰਕਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੰਗਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੋ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਟ੍ਰੇਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ ਕੰਮ ਕਾਰ ਸਿਖਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੋ ਜਦ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖਦਾ ਤੇ ਉਦੋਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਲ ਪੂਰਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਜਦ 1 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਉਹ ਲੋਕ ਹਨ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਪਾਸੇ ਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਅਧਿਕਾਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਨ ਉਹ ਅਲੱਗ-ਅਲੱਗ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੁਲਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿਣ ਦੀ ਵਿਧੀ ਵਿਧਾਨ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਮ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਲਾਇਆ ਜਾਵੇ ਕੁਝ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਤਸਾਹਿਤ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਲੋੜੀਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਪਰ ਰੈਸਟੋਰੈਂਟ ਇੰਡਸਟਰੀ ਦੀ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਰੂਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਤਬਦੀਲੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ EMPLOYEES ਨੂੰ ਲੱਭਣ ਦੇ ਰਾਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਦੁਸ਼ਵਾਰੀਆਂ ਲਿਆਉਣਗੀਆਂ
First full week of the BC election campaign gets underway. Here's what to expect. After the writ drop this weekend, Monday marks the first full official week of the provincial election campaign. BC NDP leader David Eby will be in Burnaby making a healthcare announcement on Monday morning. BC Conservative leader John Rustard is starting his day in Surrey, while BC Green leader Sonia Furtsnow is spending the day in Victoria. The BC NDP and the BC Conservatives really do appear to be neck to neck, UBC political scientist Stuart Press said. He says voters can expect the campaign to be active, vigorous, and sharp, and says things will likely become increasingly intense and possibly nasty in the coming weeks. Press says the campaign is now, but really it's been ongoing all year. He explains it's all voters really pay attention to every announcement being made, as there will be a lot of them. Is the NDP saying anything new? Is previously announced funding getting a refresh? This is going to be a stay the course kind of election for the NDP and asking for a reaffirmation, he explained. It's not the same party as the BC United. It has many of the same members at this point. We know it's a party that's led by someone who is much more skeptical about issues of gender equality or learning about the realities of human-caused climate change. Press expects things will get nasty soon enough, as they typically always do in an election campaign. This is also a test, he stresses, for NDP leader David Eby, who despite being the premier didn't run an election campaign for it. He was handed the job at the suggestion of a former premier, John Horgan, who stepped down in 2022 due to health reasons. An important subtext of this election is EB and Rusted introducing themselves to voters and voters deciding how comfortable are they with these two leaders in the role of the salesperson, the comforting presence we see voters expecting from leaders, he explained. This is something Mr. Horgan was very good at, getting voters to empathize with him, to identify with him, and to see him as their champion. And I don't know if we've had that process play out with Mr. Eby to this point, and certainly we haven't with Rusted. The BC United Party is not running any candidates in this election, while some key members of the NDP have chosen not to run again, like high-profile MLA Rob Fleming, who's currently the Transportation Minister. It might require a little more work on the part of the NDP, but at the same time that can represent an opportunity for renewal, so there's a chance there for the NDP to try and rebuild trust with younger voters. When it comes to voter apathy, Press predicts turnout on the polls will be similar to 2017 levels, which hovered around 60%. He thinks, if anything, the younger generation will opt not to vote. He thinks they are frustrated with the ongoing affordability crisis and they don't believe any leader will fix it. They won't vote at all. The election is on October 19th.
ਅਕਤੂਬਰ 19 ਨੂੰ ਹੋਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਸੂਬਾ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਆ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਜੋਰਾਂ ਸ਼ੋਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਨਡੀਪੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਮੁਖੀ ਡੇਵਿਡ ਐਬੀ ਅਤੇ ਬੀਸੀ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਦੇ ਮੁਖੀ ਜੌਨ ਰਸਟਡ ਤਾਂ ਲੋਅਰ ਮੇਲਨੈਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਣਗੇ, ਪਰ ਗ੍ਰੀਨ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਮੁਖੀ ਸੋਨੀਆ ਵਿਕਟੋਰੀਆ ਵਿਖੇ ਹੋਣਗੇ। और दस्या जा रहा है कि ऐलाननामे बड़ी चंगी तरह ने चल रहे ने और राजनीतिक खेतर दे विच महारत रखण वाले दा ये कहना कि ये बीसी कैंपेन है जिहड़ा कि अज तो शुरू होया, इस दे विच गर्मा गर्मी वाहवा होएगी, क्योंकि कंजरवेटिव पार्टी ते एनडीपी नक्को नक एक दूजे नाल भिड़मियां चल रही ने और नाल दी नाल जिहड़े लीडर ने उन्हां वल्लों पहली दफ़ा बतौर मुख्यमंत्री बतौर पार्टी लीडर जिहड़ी इलैक्शन लड़ी जा रही है। याद रहे डेविड एबी जिहड़े कि मुख्यमंत्री ने उन्होंने पहला कोई इलैक्शन नहीं लड़ी, बल्कि 2022 दे विच साबका मुख्यमंत्री ने अपनी बांगडोर सेहत ना ठीक होने के कारण बांगडोर इन्हां दे हत्थ संभाल दित्ती सी। सो लोकां दे विच पसंदीदा धारा जिहड़ी किस प्रकार चल रही है और अगाऊ समय दे विच इलैक्शन के दिनों के 19 अक्तूबर तो पहला ये जी इलैक्शन कैंपेन है ये सिर्फ और सिर्फ तकरार वाली ही नहीं, कहते हैं कि नास्टी भी होएगी।
Questions remain over what happens to donors' money now that BC United has pulled out of election. When a political party decides to pull out of an election, what happens to the funds already raised from donors? This is a question being asked in BC now after BC United announced in August that it was suspending its campaign ahead of the upcoming election, with some donors wondering what comes next. But she says Kyla Lee, a Vancouver-based lawyer with Acumen Law, says it isn't clear at this point what happens to the money. But she says if BC United keeps the money and uses it to deal with some of the debts it inquired up until this point in the campaign it could be a problematic, and there is potentially an argument that could be made for bringing a lawsuit against the financial agent for the party or the party leader himself if that does end up happening. The Elections Act places very strict limitations on making donations and the purpose for which those donations can be put to use, she said. If a donation is made for an improper purpose or used in an improper way, that could lead to a complaint to be filed under the Elections Act. But because the current situation is unprecedented, Lee says it isn't specifically covered in the Act. There may be legal pathways for donors to pursue, she says, since their legal rights to support a given candidate were potentially violated. This is especially true if evidence is brought forward showing the party or party leader continued to solicit donations after they decided to end their campaign, Lee says. I think that somebody is going to bring a lawsuit and try and investigate that, she said. If somebody were to bring a lawsuit, that might shed more light about when this decision was made and how much money was solicited after that decision had already been finalized. Karen Kirkpatrick, a former BC United MLA who is now running as an independent, says some of her donors have approached her and asked for their donations back. They are very upset that they have donated money, particularly in the last couple of months, for our party to run an election, and that's what they donated for, Kirkpatrick said. She says she's embarrassed by this situation. I just feel so sorry that I asked for the money under what I now feel were false pretenses, at least in the last couple of months, she said. And I can also share that I donated, my mother donated, my sister donated, so it's all of us, all of those people within our family and your neighbors. However, she says her supporters have been empathic, understanding that it wasn't the MLA's decision to withdraw from the campaign and are still standing behind her as an independent candidate. But there's also a lot of anger, she says.
ਅਗਸਤ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ BC ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਨੇ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਨਾ ਲੜਨ ਦਾ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ, ਪੂਰੀਆ ਬਿਸਤਰਾ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਚਲੇ ਗਏ ਸਨ। ਪਰ ਹੁਣ ਸਵਾਲ ਇਹ ਉੱਠਦਾ ਕਿ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਕਾਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੀ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਨਿਮਿਤ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਧਨ ਰਾਸ਼ੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਡੋਨੇਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਬਣੇਗਾ, ਉਸ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਕੌਣ ਪੁੱਛ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਧਨ ਰਾਸ਼ੀ ਹੈ ਵਰਤੀ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ, ਜੇ ਵਰਤੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਕੀ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਇੱਕ ਵਕੀਲ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਖਦਸ਼ਾ ਜਤਾਇਆ ਕਿ ਲੋਕੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਲੋਕ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਲੜਨ ਲਈ ਡੋਨੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਸਨ, ਕੰਟਰੀਬਿਊਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਸਨ, ਉਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਧਨ ਰਾਸ਼ੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਵੀ ਮੰਗ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਉਹ ਖਰਚੀ ਜਾਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਧਨ ਰਾਸ਼ੀ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਖਰਚੀ ਜਾਏਗੀ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਵੀ ਉਠਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਕਾਨੂੰਨੀ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਡਿਟੇਲ ਦੀ ਮੰਗ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੈ।
Suspect arrested after attack in Burnaby Park on Saturday. A suspect has been arrested and is facing charges after reportedly attacking someone with a glass bottle in a Burnaby Park Saturday, Mounties say. RCMP Corporal Mike Kalanj says officers were called to Confederation Park around 1:30 p.m. where they located and detained the suspect and found the victim suffering from minor injuries. The suspect was transported to Burnaby RCMP detachment and will face an assault with a weapon charge, Kalanj said. In addition to the bottle, the victim was attacked with other objects nearby, he said. Post on social media says the object included metal poles from a pickleball net, but this has not been confirmed. Police say the investigation is ongoing.
ਪਾਰਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਣੀ ਵਾਲੀ ਸ਼ੀਸ਼ੇ ਦੀ ਬੋਤਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਦੇ ਮਾਰਨ ਦੇ ਨਵਿੰਤ ਇੱਕ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਚਾਰਜ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ, ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਸਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਲਿਜਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ ਅਰੈਸਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਔਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਸਿਰਫ ਔਰ ਸਿਰਫ ਸ਼ੀਸ਼ੇ ਦੀ ਪਾਣੀ ਵਾਲੀ ਬੋਤਲ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਲਕਿ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜੋ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਹੱਥ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਈਆਂ ਮਾਰੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਜਿਸ ਦੀ ਕਿ ਪੁਸ਼ਟੀ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਪਰ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਇਸ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਦੀ ਹੁਣ ਤਫਤੀਸ਼ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ।